Okay, we're back again, and we're going to do a bit more difficult problems for this example. So I've started out, we've got a normal distribution with a mean of 10. So what do we want to do? We want to put the 10 right here in the middle. Standard deviation of 3. So that means that, remember, you've got basically everything within 3 standard deviations. So I really haven't drawn this very well. Let me kind of fix this a little bit. I went too far. Okay, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we move in terms of standard deviations. So we have 13, 16, 19. I'm just adding 3. Now I'm going to subtract going this way. 7, 4, and 1. Okay, so just to refresh our memory, remember underneath the entire curve is 100%. Within 3 standard deviations, so go 3 in both directions, is 99.7. Within 2 is the 95, and with 1 is 68. Okay, so we're always using that rule. Okay, so this problem asks us, normal distribution with mean of 10, right in the middle, standard deviation of 3. What's our first question? Let's find what percent of the data is between 4 and 16. Okay, so we see here we have 10. We're going down to 4, draw a line, up to 16, draw a line. Okay, and we're going to shade what's in between there. Okay, so all of this here. Okay, so we need to count over in terms of standard deviations. How many standard deviations have we gone? Well, 2 in this direction, 2 in that direction. So this is plus 2 standard deviations. This is minus 2 standard deviations. So that means that we have, by the rule, 68, 95, 97. So 68, 95, 99.7 rule. 2 standard deviations is 95%. So this part of the data, we've got 95% there. Okay, so to answer the question, we would say 95%. Okay, now the next question we're going to ask is what is between 10 and 16? What percent of the data is between 10 and 16? Okay, so let's redraw our picture here. Here's our 10, and we're going just 1, 2, 3, 13, 16, 19, 1, 2, 3, and we're going 7, 4, 1. Okay, so now we're being asked just this part. Okay, just that part. So how much is that going to be? Well, we know between 4 and 16 is 95. Remember, this line divvies it in half. So this part here and this part here have to be equal, which means that this would be 95 over 2, which is 47.5%. Okay, so you can do that on the calculator. You're going to say 95 divided by 2. There it is, 47.5. Okay, so that means that's what's in there. So then you could also tell me, if I ask what's between 4 and 10, also 47.5%. Okay, so let's just answer that real quick. What percent of the data is between 4 and 10? Well, we know that has to be, if we draw a little picture of it, it's going to be, here's your 10. You got 1, 2 down here. So here you're talking about this piece here. That also has to be 47.5. Okay, so we would answer this, squeak it in here, 0.5%. All right, okay, so part D now. Next question I want to ask is what is below what percent of the data is below 16. Okay, so let's draw another picture. Here we have 10 in the middle, Okay, so 1, 4, 7, 13, 16, 19. Okay, so we want to say here and everything below. Well, let's shade it a little differently. Let's go like this. Yellow here. Kind of regretting using the yellow marker. It doesn't work that well. And let's go with pink. So that's all of this. Okay, so what do we know? Well, we know this yellow part is 47.5% from up above. And what do we have here? Well, we have the halfway mark. So what has to be below half of it, below the mean? It has to be 50%. So that's 50%. Okay, so what percent of the data is below 16? Well, you're going to add those two things up. So you're going to say 50% plus 47.5% is equal to 97.5%. So that answers the question. Okay, that's the amount that's below 16. Well, what do you think I'm going to ask you next? What percent of the data is above 16? Okay, now one thing we haven't talked about is look at the picture, and you should be able to make like a guess at it. Does it look like there's very much above 16? No. You've already got 97.5% shaded, so what has to remain there? Well, let's draw another picture. So here we have 16. Oops, not 16. 10. 10. 13, 16, 19, 1, 4, 7. Okay, so we want to know what's above 16. Okay, so let's figure it out. Well, we know that this is 47.5, and this, doing a lousy job here, okay, is 50. So the part that we're curious about is the unshaded part, or this. All of that, okay? Well, how would we be able to figure it out? Well, we know that if we add all these shaded areas together, the pink, the yellow, the orange, they all together have to be 100%. So can't we just say that this piece right here is going to, well, let's just go down here. We'll say 100%. Minus 50%, minus 47.5%. We should be able to guess that that's a very small percentage. Let's do it on our calculator. 100 minus 50 minus 47.5 gives us 2.5%. That's what's in that, what we call tail. Okay? So that's the answer to that question. So, if you want to check what you're doing here, you're checking that if you add all of these numbers, they always equal 100%. Okay? So now let's go ahead and do another problem. So let's do in part F now. I want to say, what percent of the data is between 13 and 16. All right, so now let's take a look at, first of all, what that picture would look like. So let's shade it. Here's our 10. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So 7, 4, 1, 13, 16, 19. Okay, so between 13 and 16, that's this piece right here. Oh no, let's color it green. We haven't colored anything green yet. Okay, that's what we're being asked to find. So basically we have to fill in, somehow we have to figure out what this is going to be. So I can think of, if I look at my pictures of what I have, look back and see, do you notice that you know what 16 and below is? Right? You know what 16 and below is? There's just so many different ways to do this. We know what 16, let's do it this way. I think this is the easiest way. We know that above 16 is this orange part. So we know that this Okay, we figured that out is 2.5%. Okay, so now do we know what this part is? Right here, shaded in our pink. Okay, that's half of the whole picture, isn't it? That's half of the, so we know that that's 50%. Okay, so what do we have to figure out now? We have to figure out this chunk. Well, how would we figure that out? How would we figure out what that is? Well, that piece there is 1 standard deviation, okay, above. But it's only half of it. So to figure that out, to figure out that yellow, let's do this. Let's say, well, it's 10, 13, 16, 19, 13, 16, 19. And this is getting a little sloppy, I'm sorry. Okay, so if we go like this and like this, all right, this is within how many standard deviations here? That's within 1 standard deviation, right? Within 1 standard deviation. What does the rule say? 68, 95, 99.7. So this is within 1 standard deviation. So we know that this whole shaded area is 68%. So that's between 7 and 10. I don't want between 7 and 10. I want between 10 and 13. Well, we know that this divvies it up in half. So we know that this part has to be 34%. This part has to be 34% for it to add to 68. So we just found out this yellow shaded piece here is 34%. Okay? So now, are we going to be able to find the green part? Well, you know the whole area under the curve is 100%, right? The whole percentage underneath here is 100. If we subtract off the things we don't want, we should be left with the green. So the answer to the question, to answer this question, we're going to go back up here and say, we're going to take 100%, we're going to subtract off 50%, subtract off 34%, subtract off 2.5%, and look at it and see what you think. What would you say that it is? It's certainly more than 2.5%, right? It's less than 34%. We should get an answer somewhere in between these two numbers. Okay, so let's see what we get. Well, let's take our calculator out and see. We get 100 minus 50 minus 34 minus 2.5. And what do we get? 13.5%. So when you look at that picture, does it look to you like you've got something in between there? 13.5 looks like the proper amount to be shaded. So that's the answer to the question. Okay, so I'm hoping that I've done enough for you now that you're going to be able to do all your homework problems. Let me know if you still need some more help.